quite a difference. I don't do this as often anymore, but excited to be here. Thank y'all for coming. It's really important to Coach Rule that, we share. Y'all hear him. I know I say y'all a lot, so everybody get used to it. You guys, I sit over there where Keith's sitting at, most of his press conferences and even those of our staff, and y'all hear him mention a lot of people's names. And it was really important to him, that Keith put something together that you could get a look behind the scenes. It's not just coming from him, because that's where the magic is happening. It really is. I mean, he's a tremendous leader. I wanted to give Sean a standing ovation. He's incredible. The fact that they've worked together for so long has been, it's been fun to see, and I'm just happy to be here. I didn't really mean to do an opening statement, but I was thinking about it when I walked down here, and I was like, golly, the last time I really did this in any formal setting was at our 23 state championships. 23? 22. Yes, it runs together. So thank y'all for coming, and glad to take any questions.
What is it like for you to have made that adjustment where you have gone from being out in front in Texas to behind the scenes here?
I love it. I do. I mean, there's, when you're in a position as a state athletic director, especially the state of Texas, that's a blessing in itself. But work is work. And I signed on for this, and, there probably wouldn't be too many people that I'd go and work for and leave those Texas boundaries. And there probably wasn't another university that I probably would have had in my line of sight. When people on our staff, say that they're truly Nebraska fans, it's good. And it's, everywhere you go, I know I stayed athletic director there, and you just, I'm behind the scenes here, and I'm perfectly okay with it. But no matter who you are or what you do, when you change a job, you have to re-earn it. And that's been my mentality the whole way, is just to get in here, put my head down, and help make this program better.
Can you go into that a little bit more? Why make that move? Sean kind of broke down his path and being charmed by Lincoln.
Well, so when you're the state athletic director, I don't know if this is this way in every state, but you end up knowing all of the college coaches. And so when Matt, I knew Coach Browse, and I grew up in Waco. So I always stopped through there and went to practice because I was going from Austin. Our home base was out of Austin, Texas. We were part of the University of Texas system. And I was always going to DFW, and I stopped through, when Matt came in, I'm like, who is this guy from Rice? And then, you read about him. And he hired three of my buddies, Joey McGuire, David Wetzel, Sean Bell, very highly regarded Texas high school football coaches. And I was like, wow, this is interesting what he's done here. So I stopped through. I met him and Sean. I have a picture on my wall in my office of me and Sean, and Sean Padden's actually taking the picture. It was me, Joey McGuire, David Wetzel was in that picture. John Bell wasn't in that picture, but I got internal to that program. And I didn't just get internal just by what I observed. I got internal to that program because Joey McGuire is a good friend of mine. And everything that he was telling me was like, this guy's an incredible leader. I've been enamored with leadership my whole career, not only my own personal leadership, but those that work with me and around me. And you saw, I just heard Sean, kind of telling y'all how when he got in front of the youth group there and spoke, and he was on fire. It was the same way for me. You don't always get to choose your bosses, but when you can, you take advantage of it. And it was a no-brainer for me to go work for somebody that was going to, you think I was at my pinnacle, but it's just like anything else. My number one goal was to be athletic director of the state of Texas, but, once I met him, I knew I wanted to go, to stay associated with him in some way. Almost went to Carolina with him. COVID hit, and I was like, I cannot leave the state of Texas during COVID. But then it came full circle. And I'm so glad, that I have this opportunity to work for him. He makes you better. He makes everybody better. And that's what, people should always want to work for, is to be better. How does he make me better? I've always, prided myself in being meticulous in he's 10 times meticulous. And because I always think the little things are what make the big things happen. You know, if there's a speck of dust on a table where we're having a recruiting visit, that could change that recruiting visit just like that. If there is a piece of equipment out and we have guests at practice, it could send the message that we're not at this elite level that we say that we're at. So the little things for him, I don't know that I've ever seen anybody as self-aware as he is, and aware of his environment, and and he pushes you for perfection. And so, for me, where I felt like I was already at that level, I'm more so, ingrained in the goals of this program. And to give it a little bit more broad context, it doesn't matter what level you are in this program, you're accountable to winning. And, I don't know how every person feels about this, but I know that it's always driven me is if you anchored me to the goal and you made me accountable to the goal, then I was going to be that much better as an employee, in that group, whether when I was coaching or when I was an athletic director in schools or whether I was as an athletic director of the state. And so if it's our lowest level person, all due respect to that, because we have a lot of, up-and-comers on our staff, they have that same level of accountability. And I think that's what makes us so, incredible, is that everybody has pressure on them in their areas to perform so that we can be successful. And I want to add one more piece to that. And the success is making those kids, putting those kids, those players, I came from public school, so I still say kids, but putting those players in position to be successful. The number one reason we're here is not Matt Rule. The number one reason we're here is those players, and to help them meet every goal and check every box that they have.
What roles did you have in helping get everybody moved into the building, or finalized with the building, and how is that a game changer, the new building over there?
So for the new building, I was in charge of, just pretty much when I hopped on board here in January of 23, I was, in charge of just all the transition plans, and they changed a lot. We thought we were moving in June of 2023. That didn't happen. We ended up being able to get into this lower level over here. I just came from there, that's why I'm pointing that way. We were able to get into the locker room, the recovery area, the athletic medicine, and that was the most important thing to us, and really, for Coach Rule is, to get those players in that locker room, especially those seniors. They had been hearing about that building, they'd had input into that building, and all the powers that be here and Hausman, they helped us get in there. I don't know that they really wanted to be on that timeline, but that made it very special. And I'll look at it, the bigger picture, and say it honestly, the transition, going just one level and then coming back and, getting on our top level, that actually probably made it a little bit better. We'd have liked to have been in way sooner. But it was, it's a monster. We have a very large staff. We have a staff of 73, and you have, from strength and conditioning to nutrition to your athletic medicine staff to your recruiting staff to all that. And, our on-field coaches, obviously most importantly. But, it was funny. We moved in right after spring ball, and our coaches went right on the road. So we moved our coaches into the building. But what I saw was, we were in, I think, 200,000 square feet of space, and you go over there and it's 315,000 square feet of space, and I may be a little off here and there on my numbers, but it's close. And we're so spread out, but it's unbelievable. And where we tour recruits through there, we've always had on hard hats. There's been a lot of unfinished space, and we're having an OV this weekend. To where we can show it off. That walkthrough room, y'all, and I know you guys will get a glimpse of this at some point, but that walkthrough room is unbelievable. Those meeting spaces for our players is elite as it can get. The offices, our coaches' offices, they overlook, the practice fields. And, you understand once you get inside of it, you can get lost in the wrong things sometimes, especially with the role I was in, tried to get us in there and, just the frustration of it. But you lost it just like that, because, what Nebraska did and what our donors did is they put our players, our football program in a position to be very successful and to have the most elite facility in college football. And that's only going to, contribute to the recruiting, contribute to the retention and all the things that go with having a successful football program.
In terms of the size of the weight room, how many more all-purpose racks are in this new one versus the old one, out of curiosity?
I couldn't quote that number, but what I can tell you, I should be able to do that, so y'all don't talk about me bad later, okay? But we could not lift all of our team at once in the other weight room. And we can lift our entire football team, which we have 149 on the roster, at one time. Now, we split them up for other reasons, especially like when we're in spring ball, because that way offense meets, defense is lifting. But we weren't able to do that. And, I mean, the square footage and the space and, our hill, the incline that, resistive training just inside there, the cardio deck, I mean, it's unbelievable. But, I'll never forget, we did it, I guess we did it in mat drills. Right when we finished mat drills, we pulled the whole team into that weight room and did just a whole team lift. And I got goosebumps because you got to remember, I came from high school and you could, you had your teams, your rosters were much smaller and you were able to lift everybody in one space. And to see every player from special teams, offense, defense, every position, every coach in there, it was awesome. And, but what we do, I don't know we'll always utilize it that way, but we did do that a couple times also through spring training, and I just thought it was so cool. It probably is my background that makes me think that's so cool, but we definitely have, double the space in there now.
The old weight room, like what's going to happen in that space? I mean, are the weights going to stay in there?
They did. Good question. They transitioned that over to the Olympic sports. And, we took very few items, from that building over there, and then they added a few, so they're lifting in there. So, when we remained in our offices until this space was complete, I thought it was kind of cool to look down there. Amelia Flint, she was one of our student workers for a while. Her brother's on the team. And I remember I walked over to the window and I looked down and she's down there just squatting. And I don't know, it's probably just my passion for all sports that makes that so interesting to me. But I do think it's cool. But that space is fully occupied by them as of now. Yep.
That's what you mentioned there, your passion for all sports. Of course, when you were at the UIL, it was more than football that you were in charge of. What's been your observation about this athletic department? Just like a 30,000-foot view, and also, how much does it? Do you have a connection with Coach Rule because he seems to want to be so involved with things that are happening at other venues besides Memorial Stadium?
So you can't help, once you're an athletic director, you can't help but take that that hat off. I mean, I always want to put it back on. I'm like, okay, hang on, I'm just in one sport now. But what I do understand about football is that it can, and I believe this when I, very first got into athletic administration, and I believe this to this day, is that, you can learn a lot and gain a lot from the sport of football and the way that they run, the program from the internal to the external. And it benefits other sports. So when I was an AD in schools, I always made coaches collaborate. I believed in it because I firsthand had that experience. Way back when I was hired by Todd Graham at Allen High School. He didn't have an office for me. He stuck me in with the football coaches. It was the best thing that could have ever happened for me. I sat in there and watched film, offense, defense, special teams. I charted plays on the sidelines. And, he wasn't making me do it. But what it did is it made me, at that time I was a high school softball coach, and it made me better. So when I look at the 30,000 feet here from kind of just having that background, and I look across the sports, and I'll answer the first part of this, I mean, what we do for athletes here is unbelievable. The resource that we pour into them and, that they provide for the coaches so that we can have success here is only just beginning, is the way I look at it. Troy Dannon, Haven Fields, their addition to our athletic department, I love Trev, and I was always enamored with Trev, and so, he was so highly respected, and hated to see him go. Even he went back to my home state. I teach a class at Texas A&M, so it's kind of funny that he went back there. But when I look at, the immediate impact that Troy, Dannon, and Haven, and we've added, I can't think, what's Seth's last name? Dorsey, our CFO. I mean, they're among the staff, and they're among all that. So I flip over to Coach on the final part of this question, and you have this great collaboration already, he had with the head coaches, and I get to be a small part of that, right? And in my role, I'm not an extension of him. I get to meet them because of him, and I'm in awe of Fred Horberg. I'm in awe of Amy Williams. Rhonda Ravel, I asked her to speak at the Texas High School Coaches Convention this summer because I was such a fan of hers, growing up. So I watch how Coach looks across the sports and he says, how, what we're doing here, how can this benefit the other sports? And so when they have those head coaches meeting, although I'm not in those, I know there's nothing rehearsed. He's not trying to win favor with anyone. He legitimately wants to see every sport here have the success, of the national championship. And he hops on board. He's got two daughters. His son will be going to school here next year. He wants them to be immersed into the women's programs as well. So long answer, but it is something that I love, and I'm glad that he embraces it as well.
How much do you think this staff has been able to change how the Nebraska brand is viewed in Texas in the time you guys have been here?
He had me interview with a couple of people from the Texas area right when I got hired here, and the one thing I felt like Nebraska had moved away from is the pipeline that they did have in Texas, and I think that's just a recruiting preference and what style of play you're looking for on your team. Coach, he'll call it a developmental, and he's not wrong that our program, in some aspects, he may not get the 4 and 5 star. He'll go for the 3 star because he sees all the upside to them. But when him and I met about this job, I'm not going to be the driving train on recruiting. I'm just not. But I'm not going to hurt it either. There's not a head coach one that I can't call in the state of Texas and talk about a player and try to sell why they should come here. What everybody needs to understand, there's not much selling because Coach had such big impact while he was at Baylor on our Texas high school coaches and even on the Texas High School Coaches Association. They're going to always encourage their kids to come and play for our staff and under his leadership. But I did have a couple, where I was able to, if any, I don't want to even say sway, but I was able to encourage some things because of those roots, and anywhere I can help. I think our staff does a great job. They don't need me to do that, but again, I'm not going to hurt it, and I can help reinforce what we're doing here and what their role would be here, especially with the parents, because they're like, wow, you were that lady in charge, and you were that one that always was giving that trophies, and you're like, yeah, I am that lady, so it's been good, and I'm glad to see that we're back in Texas, and I love what we're doing here in Nebraska, to be honest with you. We talk about that a lot as a staff, and picking up our local players here and trying to identify the kids that can either walk on here or be full scholarship and keep that pipeline as well. I mean, I think that's what's made Nebraska great, and we want to just carry that tradition out.
How was he able to build relationships in Texas so quickly when he came to Baylor?
Oh, you've seen him up here, hadn't you?
Well, I know, but how did you see that kind of play out, though?
Oh, I mean, he's so authentic. I mean, y'all, I get the privilege of going to a lot of things with him and hearing him speak, especially in here, to our players, to our staff. I mean, all the settings that we're in, and there's never a pocket speech. Y'all know what a pocket speech is. They give it over and over, and they're in every setting they're in. It is just exactly what he is thinking at the time, and he's so transparent. He's super intense, and I love intensity. I think that's what makes things go. But he just, when you can't help but he's like a magnet, and you want to go and you just want to take all that information because his intelligence level is off the charts, and he pulls his inspiration from so many different things. It's not predictable. I mean, one second he could be talking about Bill Belichick and all the great things that he did when he came here, and the next second he could be talking about Taylor Swift and just what a genius she's been, and and had so many setbacks early on, and is now a multi-billionaire, and it's that I don't know, I love it. I mean, because it inspires you to look for every resource you can to be better, and I think that's what he did for our Texas high school coaches, is built relationships that were authentic. The straight line recruiting in Texas, are y'all aware of what that is? Never heard of it? So it was Texas High School Coaches Association kind of banded with all the D1 coaches in the state and asked them to have straight line recruiting, which means when you're going to offer a kid or pull an offer from a kid, you're going to go directly to the high school coach. And you're not going to offer the kid first and then tell the coach. You're going to have that relationship with the coach because, as y'all know, in Texas, all your coaches are full-time employees. Probably 90% of them are teacher coaches, but they don't have other professions and then come and coach in the evening or afternoon or whatever. And every coach committed to it. And, he honors it to this day, while we're here in Nebraska. I mean, a couple of them of our recruiting staff has actually had me call a head coach, which, I mean, I'd have loved it. Hey, we're going to offer this kid, what do you think? And because they're like my brothers, a lot of those coaches in Texas. And but he stuck with the straight line. He bought in immediately because he could look at other states and see that they don't have what Texas has in terms of the professionalism, the daily athletic periods, the year-round training in all aspects of sports. And he also saw, the dedication of those high school coaches to those players, and he's honored it since he came here. It's awesome. It really is.
Hey, Susan, you talk about your title as chief of staff.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just describe some of the varying duties? I mean, one day you're doing something, the next day you're doing something else.
Yeah.
How varying is that?
It's, what you do, for me, I look over the landscape of a very large staff, and I'm like, we have some of the most intelligent and hardworking visionaries that I've, come into contact with. And when first thing I came right on, I mean, a lot of them they're pretty young. I call myself the old gray mule on the staff. Me and Foley, we're the old folks. I told Matt he's about to go over the edge, he'll go over the hump and hit 50, and then he gets to be one of those. But it could change on it. I mean, in any second I could be, I could be working on helping recruiting get, the official visit right to, on I call it the third floor, but it was over at that other building working with our top administration so that Matt doesn't have to, his whole time is, he can dedicate his time to making this football program better. Now he's very hands-on, so I don't want to, change, pretend like it's anything, but, from preparing for us to go on road trips to, the daily administrative functions of this job, to sometimes even talking to the governor, it is just such a vast, landscape. And when I look at it, and I look at our leadership, they probably think I'm cheesy because I still use a lot of coach speak. I can't help it. But, what I try to do is I try to, be invested in each person, make sure they have every resource they need to be successful, and to make sure we don't get in what I call silos, to where, they're doing this and this group doesn't know how this is functioning over in this department. And I'm real big on your horizontal leadership, will affect your vertical growth. And I feel like, and I feel like with Coach, he does a great job of, aligning us horizontally, but you've just got to make sure they're strong-willed, intelligent visionaries. I mean, I just can't, when I look at each one of them, I think of Kristen, I think of Gus, I think of Corey Campbell, I think of Vince. I could go on and on. I think of, oh my gosh, I lost his name. Our video guy. Cole Gerke. I'm throwing out names. It's a lot. I haven't done this in a while. But I look at each one of them, and I just wish you guys could spend time with it because you're like, okay, hold on. Yes, you're doing this, but let's make sure everybody on our staff knows that this is how this is going to operate and this is going to function. And, it's. I think I do okay at it. I think I could be better. I'm one of those people that I never think you've completely arrived. And you have to figure out the job of chief of staff. I don't know. I want every person that's on our staff in any role, including myself, to be the best in college football. And it's that for my position, I feel like it's a little harder to measure because it's not a measurable contribution. But I think that we do a good job of pulling it all together and, making our program, what we're trying to do is set benchmarks for ourselves so that we set ourselves apart from everybody else. And you asked about that building. Moving in that building is just one step towards that. And I think that in each area, you have to push those leaders to continue to look for that next best thing, so that we're doing it before everybody else is. I mean, Sean is like, he's my hero. I think he's incredibly, intelligent as well, and he is one of the strongest visionaries on our staff.
Susan, I'm curious, would you like to someday be an athletic administrator, AD, senior?
It's funny.
Did
I get this question a lot.
Did you get in this to kind of be involved in day-to-day football? Just like,
Man, I mean, if you'd have told me I was going to be doing college football just a few years back, I'd have said no. I mean, I knew, my first 3 years of coaching and teaching, I was like, I want to be the athletic director of the state of Texas. And I poured my heart and soul into getting to that job in 2015. And I got there, and I loved it. And, I do miss, there's aspects of that job I miss. But I get this question a lot, I guess because I was an athletic director, do I have this goal? And I tell everybody, if something like that happened, it would happen organically, because I feel like I owe Matt a ton of loyalty and a ton of commitment, and the other thing is what I want to pour, my efforts into, and however I can contribute, is us winning a national championship. I'm not afraid to talk about it. I think that's what we're here to do. And, if I have all these other things I'm trying to do to prepare myself to become that, I'm not the best at this job that I'm doing. So it's not a goal. It's definitely not a goal. But this one wasn't a goal either. So, who knows how that'll shake out. But I just can't see myself not working for Matt Rule. That's the way I look at it.
With you being such close friends with Joy McGuire, what's it been like for you to work with Garrett?
It's fun. Their mannerisms. Just a quick story. When I came here and I was talking to Matt, right before I had accepted any job, he's like, "You got to call Joey. And Joey's going to tell you all the good, the bad, the ugly." And so I called Joey, and Joey's like, "Susan, I love Matt, and he given me. There was no bad, He's fast and furious. He's everything I thought he'd be." But when I called Coach back, I was like, "Coach, he said you were a piece of crap, and that I shouldn't go work for you." That's my friendship with Joey, And of course, I told Joey. Joey's like, "Don't tell him that, But having Garrett here, I mean, it's just, I feel like I've known Garrett since he was knee-high to a grasshopper, but I knew him from afar. I mean, I was always interacting with Joey when he was the head coach at Cedar Hill and when he was at Baylor. But, I wasn't like I was going to their games every week because I was at, a multi-school district at the time, and I had my own games to go to. But I remember when I went to a Carolina Panthers game, coach's last year there, and Garrett comes running across the field. He's on the staff, and he hugs me. He's like, "I'm so glad you're here." And when I finally, some of it was hidden because I didn't want the state of Texas knowing that I was going. He was one of the first ones that reached out to me and said, because I think he was contemplating coming at the time, and he sealed his deal later on down the line. And it's just great. He is so much like his dad, but also so much his own person. And, to see someone that young, that knowledgeable is incredible. And I don't feel any, I love to come in here, when he does his press conferences, I do. Just to watch him grow up and do what he does. But he's a incredible, wide receiver coach, and his future is so bright. And I'm just glad to be a part of it with him and share that time with him.
Hey, Susan, with what you and Rule have been able to do so far for the program, just coming in and building it up, having this first year done, how rewarding has this been for you?
Y'all hear Coach talk about 5 and 7 all the time, and our games that were just lost by the margins, of 3 and 2 overtime games. And but for me, when I look at last season, what I had missed, I had missed being in a coach's office, and I'm back. I go in there and I kick around, and you're just as welcome in any of their offices. I shoot the bull with them. It's awesome. I talk about offense, I talk about defense, I talk about special teams with Ed. So I've loved that. But the most rewarding thing are the players, period. Because when you become the state AD, you're stranger danger to every athlete out there. They just don't know who you are. They just know you're some lady that walks around and gives out awards. Now, the coaches knew who you were, but coming here, the players, and their progression. I mean, from when we started in January, and, the things that they went through from the mat drills and, spring ball and, our summer workouts, and then we go into season, And I'll fast forward a little bit just to not make it too long, but we go 5-7. But the turning point for me, you know, because when you're so in tune to athletics and coaching and the profession of coaching and player development and from all aspects, the mental aspects, the physical aspects, all the things that we have, and we lost that game to Michigan, and we went out on that field out there, and we practiced on a Sunday, and it was unheard of. And we came back that next week, and we played Illinois. And you know, the first goal line stand that we had, and we kept them from scoring. That team changed from that point forward. Even though we didn't win the rest of those games, it was a player-led team, and I mean, it gives me goosebumps because that's what you're working towards as a program. Any person in that role should want those players to be leading that team. And I knew we were going to be just fine. You know, we all held out hope, and every game you were like, it's building to this big moment. And you know, we had the heartbreaking Iowa game, but you never saw that locker room. You know, you never saw it dip after that Michigan game. And I know, you know, y'all spring ball was awesome. You know, and we're going to carry that momentum over, but we're not going to be complacent either. We're going to continue to build towards that. So. It's been awesome. I love those players. I don't. You know, they sometimes try to figure out exactly what I do, but it all happens very organically, where they get to know who you are and what your role is. And we're a very, very tight knit team. And our staff is very, very tight knit. And you put all that together, we're a hell of a football family. It's fun.
Anything else? Great.
All right, thank you all.